These are the instructions for completing your research proposal assignment. This is page 9 of your syllabus, and you see that there's a short summary of what we're looking for out of this assignment. It says each student will submit a 15-20 page paper plus references and appendices detailing their proposed research project. Should follow the outline below. The page numbers are approximate for each section and are for guidance only. This lends itself to the idea that if you come up with a page length shorter than 15, that's fine. A page length larger than 20, that's also fine. So first, I'll complete this document as we go, so this way you see it coming to life. So page 1 will be your title page. Okay. Page 2 will be your abstract. And here the abstract will indeed be 250 words. And this will be just summarizing the body of your paper. Now, in addition to that, you'll also include keywords on page 2. And that'll be the end of it. So you'll see plenty of empty space on page 2. Again, don't be intimidated by that empty space. Just let it go. Move on to page 3, which starts the body of your paper. And in the body of your paper, or rather in the, just complete the abstract. So you got 250 words summarizing the body of your paper plus keywords, and that's it. So the abstract should be written last, so this way you can reread the body of your paper and see what the main points are, so this way you can move forward with writing the abstract, summarizing everything. In the body of your paper, you're going to first start with the introduction. And within the introduction, you'll include your study aims, research questions, and hypotheses. Study aims, and research questions / hypotheses. Now, I've uploaded a separate video related to developing your research questions and hypotheses. If you need to, you can always reference it in the future. I'm not going to go through that whole process again here. The link will be there, so this way you can access that at your convenience. So the introduction here, you'll talk about what your study aims and research questions and hypotheses are. If we scroll down to page 10, we see the rubric that's going to be used for the research proposal, and you want to use both documents while completing the research proposal assignment, so this way you capture all of the points that you can. So we talked about the abstract that introduces the purpose, scope, and method of your project, which is essentially a summary of everything that's to come. The clear introduction that introduces your study aims and research questions and hypotheses, that'll be 2 points. But within the introduction section, you'll also include the significance of the topic, as in the statement of the problem and gaps in knowledge about the topic. So here within the introduction, you'll have a statement of the problem that you're studying, as well as the gaps in current literature on that particular problem that you're studying, and you'll also talk about how your study aims to fill those gaps. How your study aims to fill those gaps. All right. And within the introduction, you've captured 2 points here, 2 points here, and 2 points here. So those will be 6 points that you've just captured. So again, your introduction, this is not just one paragraph, of course, it's an introduction section. Within that, you're writing about your study aims and research questions and hypotheses, which again, you can also reference separate video. And then you're talking about the specific problem that you're looking at. And this is very subjective, not based on literature. You're not going to have any citations here. The gaps in current literature, what you found as far as what was absent in the literature review that you did for that particular assignment, and then how your study aims to fill the gaps that exist in literature, right? And then the next section will be your literature review. And here you're just copy and paste the contents of your literature. I can't spell, sorry about that. Literature review. That's it. That's the end of your literature. You've already gotten credit for that assignment. So you're just going to be copying and pasting the body of your literature review. Remember not to have a new title page, not to have a separate abstract. You're just taking the body of your literature review, copy and paste the contents, the body, the body contents of your literature review assignment. And that'll complete that particular bullet point. So you have the introduction, you have the literature review. Let's go back here. Let's see what else is left. Scroll up to page 9. Now we have your methodological approach, design methods and analysis, overall design, participants and sampling, data collection, data analysis. So let's go over here. This section will be called methodology. And within the methodology section, you will first answer all of the who, what, where, when, why, how questions. Who, as in sample, okay. What, as in what are you studying? Topic, okay. Who, what, where are you studying this? You've answered these questions already, so you can, or I'm sorry, setting, I think is the right setting. When, frequency, and duration. Right. So what is a time frame? I guess I'll include that as well. Time frame. Who, what, where, when, why. Now the why part is already covered in literature review, so you don't have to go into the reason as to why you're doing what you're doing. And then the how is specifically the methodology part. Specifics on methodology. So what is the, I can't spell still, sorry about that, methodology. And within that, the how part, this is where you're going to be talking about certain elements. You're going to be writing about the fact that your study is quantitative, right? You're going to be talking about your study being cross-sectional, okay? And you're going to be talking about how your study is exploratory. Now, for each, you have to detail why. It's not enough to just write that this is a quantitative research study. What makes it quantitative? What makes your study quantitative? And I don't want to write this out because, I mean, at this point, you should know this already. If I were to write it out, it'd be a very long document, but it's a quantitative study because you have closed-ended questions and you're aiming to do statistical analysis here, right? Cross-sectional. Why is it cross-sectional? Because it's not longitudinal. You're collecting the same data from the same sample once. All right. Now, if this word were twice or anything more than once, then it would be a longitudinal study. But you're writing out the fact that this is a cross-sectional study because you'll be collecting the same data from the same sample once. And it's exploratory because there are gaps in literature, right? So since there are gaps in literature, it's because there are gaps in literature. So why is your study exploratory? It's because there are gaps in literature. So within the methodology section, you've got the design, you've got the participants and sampling already, you've got the data collection part, which will, covers the how part here. It's quantitative. You're talking about what it is that you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it. Specifics on methodology would include the quantitative part, cross-sectional, exploratory part, and talk about what is the data collection process. You're using a questionnaire, right? That's one of the things that you're doing. You're using, you'll be collecting the data during the frequency, the time frame that you have listed here. But the data collection process itself is through the questionnaire. We already know that it's quantitative, we already know that it's cross-sectional, we already know that it's exploratory, and we have a time frame as far as when it's going to be done. We also have a setting for when it's going to be done. So essentially you've answered all of the questions pertaining to data collection. Now the last thing in the methodology section would be proposed analysis. Now you don't yet have the data, obviously, because this is just a proposal. So there's no way to know which statistical tests are appropriate to be used. So for the proposed analysis section, you just simply write that SPSS will be used to analyze all quantitative data collected. Analyze all quantitative data collected, right? And that'll be the proposed analysis. Now you don't have any data to analyze, and without the data present, the appropriate statistical analysis tests are not available to you, because it all depends on what the data looks like, face value, how much data you have, how relevant, how, whether or not you have repeat questions and things like that. So the analysis part we'll get a clearer understanding of next semester, but right now, with the proposed analysis, you're simply saying that SPSS will be used to analyze all quantitative data that is collected, or say quantitative data after it has been collected. Right? So that'll be the analysis section of your final paper. The methodology section of your final paper as a whole. So if we go back and forth between this document and that, so we have the methodological approach covered, and let's just check here, clear method section, description of overall design. We picked quantitative, the measurements, tools for measurement. We talked about the questionnaire being used, the data collection, reasons for choosing the tools. I mean, some of you may have chosen some questions that are in existing studies, in which case you'd simply state that. Sample and participants answers the who questions, reasons for sample choice also answers the who question, right? So you're all good up until this point. Hopefully you've captured all of the points up until this point. The description of your proposed data analysis, which we just talked about in the methodology section, that is just 1 point. The reason why it's 1 point again is because you don't know, you don't have the data, so you can't guesstimate as to what you're going to be doing with something that doesn't yet exist, which it will very, very soon. As you know, by February and March, you'll be done with data collection, so at that point you'll have that information. Next would be the human ethics and human subjects considerations. So let's come up with that. Ethics and human subjects considerations, and that'll be it's page 3. Yeah. So okay. So ethics and human subjects considerations will be last part of the body of your paper, and here you're just narrate the ethics form. You know what, instead of writing that, let me just write exactly what you're going to be doing. So within the ethics and human subjects considerations, you'll be writing about the potential risks to participants. If you anticipate there being any, maybe it may cause a little bit of confusion or discomfort for some people to participate in your study. It may or may not. You want to sort of be aware of that, and what are the what are you doing to address those potential risks? So what are you doing to address those potential risks to participants? Really, it should be subjects, right? Because this is a quantitative research. And then that should complete the ethics and details of how your study will adhere to ethics. So you already have that covered. Okay. Now, page 3 to X will be the body of your paper. and then we'll start. Let me just get this right. Page X plus 1. Now, just understand that, I don't know how long the body of your paper will be, right? So from page 3 to, 10, page 3 to 12. So it's difficult for me to say when the body of your paper will end. So that's why I'm including the letter X here. So page 3 to X will be the body of your paper. Page X plus 1, which is the page after which the body of your paper ends, will be your references section. And then, let's say page X plus 1. Let me actually make it a little bit easier for you here. Page 3 to X is the body of your paper. Page X plus 1 to Y is the references. Because I don't know, some of the references sections in your literature review were 1 page, 2 pages. I think a couple students had references of 3 pages. So I can't want to make this as applicable for students as possible. So from page X plus 1, which is the page after which your body ends, to whenever your references section ends, that'll be your references section. And then page Y plus 1, which is the page after which your references section ends, will be your appendix. Now you'll only have one appendix, and the appendix will include just your questionnaire. Now this will be, I want to include this word prior to questionnaire. This will be your final questionnaire, the questionnaire from which you will no longer deviate, you'll no longer add to or subtract from. And it's we sort of have a handshake understanding that as soon as the spring semester begins, it's assumed that the final questionnaire is the final questionnaire, and there's not going to be any further edits to it. And you'll just you'll move forward in that kind of way, right? So once again, you got the page 1 is your title page, page 2 is your abstract, 250 words summarizing the body of your paper plus keywords. Page 3 starts the body of your paper, your introduction, study aims, research questions, and hypotheses. The reference could be made to the separate video there. Now, the research question and hypotheses here, you have the questionnaire from the appendix already, so you'll be able to develop, or you already have developed, all of the research questions and all of your hypotheses. So you'll include all of them in the introduction section. So it's clear that the introduction section will be fairly lengthy because you're going to be narrating out all of the material in the appendix as far as what your research questions and your hypotheses are. Then you're going to be talking about the statement of the problem, the gaps in current literature, how your study aims to fill those gaps. Then you have your literature review section where you're copying and pasting the body contents of your literature review assignment that you've all submitted. And you have a methodology. You're answering the who, what, where, when, why, how questions, as I've detailed already: the sample, the topic, the setting, the frequency and duration, the time frame. The why question you've already answered in the literature review, so you wouldn't have to go into that in any further detail. And the how question are the specifics on methodology. You're going to be talking about why your study is quantitative, what makes it quantitative, what makes it cross-sectional, what makes it exploratory, and what is the data collection process, which is you're just going to be simply writing out that the data will be collected through a questionnaire. And you'll also include C Appendix A. And then finally, within the methodology section, you have your proposed analysis, and just simply stating that SPSS will be used to analyze all quantitative data after it's been collected. And then the ethics and human subjects considerations, the potential risks of subjects, what are you doing to address those potential risks of subjects. The ethical and human subjects consideration section is not going to be very long, so if it's a few paragraphs, then that's perfectly fine. And then you'll have your references section, and then after the references you'll have your appendix. You'll only have one appendix, and that will be your final questionnaire, and that'll be your final paper. So it's fairly straightforward. It's not particularly difficult conceptually, but clearly, being that you're going to be narrating out your final questionnaire and writing down all of your research questions and hypotheses, It will be lengthy, it will be tedious, but it's not going to be as mentally taxing as the literature review was. All right, thank you.